Alright everyone, welcome back to Joe Man's Land. I hope you're having an amazing day. Today we're going to be getting into what f-mount lenses are in my bag in 2023, why you might want to use this glass, some of the limitations, and some things to look for when buying. But it's a little bit chilly out, so let's get to a coffee shop and then we'll dive in. All right, so now that we're all settled in, let's get into what is in the camera bag. There's lots of different stuff. Obviously, we'll talk a lot about the f-mount lenses, but first we're gonna have some coffee and then we will get into what the bag is as well as what my B camera is. Okay, so the bag itself is just a very basic low pro backpack. You've got camera gear in the bottom with open access from the side as well as the top, and then a laptop sleeve in the top here. I used to keep my drone, but I don't keep it there anymore because I actually sold it recently. So up here right now, I've got my main mic, which is the Rode Video Mic Pro with the dead cat on it. Also got my Lumahawk little sport light, just in case it's dark where I am. Also as well, I carry two different cleaners with me at all times. Then I've got my B camera, which is actually the Osmo Pocket 2. I also have this fancy selfie pod that works really well. I can mount this on here. And then if I want to use the mic, there's a cold shoe on the side, or I can put the light as well, just depending on the setup that I want. First lens we'll talk about is the Nikon 50mm f1.4 G lens. I picked this lens up about 5-6 months ago. I haven't had a chance to shoot a review on it yet, but I have done a lot of walking street photography with it, and it's a great lens. It's really sharp in the middle, soft around the edges, just as you'd expect at 1.4. You get lots of separation between your subject as well as you, and you can get it on a pretty good deal. It ranges anywhere from $300 to $500 Canadian used. I got it for about $300, which I thought was a pretty good deal. It's in mint condition, came with a lens hood and everything. And out of all my lenses, it's actually the latest one I have. So when I'm really wanting to have a low form factor on the Nikon, it's really great that way. Next lens we'll get into is the biggest one I have, which is the 70-200 2.8 ED version 1 lens. Again, picked this one up pretty recently. I had a 70-300 4.5-5.6 before, and I've got a wedding gig coming up, and I thought, you know what, that's probably not the best lens for that, so I picked this up instead, as well as an adapter that came with it. We'll get into that in a bit. Things I love about this lens, it's really sharp, it looks really good for people. Things I'm not as crazy about is the weight. It's a heavy piece of glass, but with any of this old DSLR glass, you're saving money on it, but one of the trade-offs is weight, right? So it's definitely one thing to keep in mind, but super good lens, really like it. Average price, anywhere from $500 to about $800 Canadian. On a good day, I picked it up for about $350 from a guy on Kijiji. He was just getting rid of his kit, came with the lens hood and everything. It's in really good shape, so that was cool. But yeah, anyways, and it also comes with a cold shoe mount as well, so you can mount your lens on the tripod itself without having to put all that weight on the camera body. Now let's get into the most used lens in my bag, which is the 17-35 f2.8 ED lens. This bad boy right here, check it out. It's pretty beat up, as you guys can see, and I paid for it actually in this state. On average, these lenses go anywhere from $800 to right around $1,200 in price. This one didn't. It went for $300. And it's obviously got some issues, but I find that as long as I use a variable ND or some sort of neutralizing filter on it, the issues on the front element don't show up in any of the images, and it looks pretty great. Things I like about this lens: 17-35 is a great focal length at 2.8. I can get lots of separation between myself and the background, which is great. Also, the autofocus works pretty well at 17mm for vlogging. If you have a Z system camera, there's no flippy screen, so if you're worrying of whether or not you're in focus or not, it's good to feel confident that the lens is getting you. Things that I don't like about it, well, first thing would be the weight. Once you throw this on the Z6, it becomes pretty hefty, and if you're vlogging for extended periods of time, you will get tired. And you know what? Jared Pullen must have been vlogging with this lens for the last 10 years, because he hasn't skipped arm day at all. So yeah, and the other thing as well is the focus motor sounds. A lot of adapted lenses will make a little bit of sound as they're focusing. This lens makes a ton of sound, and if I'm changing distance to the camera constantly, my microphone will pick it up. But saying that, I think that also might just be because this lens was really cheap and the motors are really loud because it's older and kind of beaten up. but you know, I really like this lens. This is the one I use the most, and I've never had any complaints about the image quality or the overall aesthetic that this lens puts out. Okay, so let's get into adapters. We're going to talk about two different adapters today. We'll talk about the one that's on the camera in a little bit, but first let's get into the AFS teleconverter 20E version 3. This is a 2x optical teleconverter that actually only pairs with this lens, that being the 7200 2.8 out of all my lenses. As you guys can see, let me just take this cap off. As you guys can see, the lip of this first element protrudes pretty high above the base of the mount, and this is the only lens that actually has the ability for that to fit. All the other lenses, the element is so far to the front near the mount that this won't work. But one neat thing that's worth noting is it actually works with autofocus on the Z6 with the appropriate ftzII adapter. Let's get a little bit into the ftzII adapter, which is definitely a crucial part of this kit. As you guys can see here, let's just get that in focus. It is very thick, so it's not heavy, but it is a thick piece of plastic, which will definitely add a bit of a form factor to your overall camera setup. Some things worth noting as well, with the ftzII adapter, you don't have that tripod mount that's actually built into the ftzI. Some people like it, some people don't. From what I've heard, it's kind of gets in the way of if you're mounting it on like a gimbal or something like that. I think some reasons why Nikon might have originally put that tripod mount there was a fear of a heavier f-mount glass breaking or falling off with the connection point on the adapter with the Nikon Z bodies. So let's talk a little bit about the form factor of the Nikon Z6 body. So one of the things I love about this camera is the form factor. I think that it's very easy to grip if you've got big hands. It's very comfortable, which is something that's true for all of the Nikon mirrorless cameras. So shout out to them for nailing the design. So let's just talk about some reasons why you might want to get f-mount glass in 2023. Number one is the price. Generally speaking, it's a lot cheaper than Z-mount glass, and I've had some experience using Z-glass. I'm not here to say that Z-glass isn't superior or isn't better than these older lenses, but f-mount glass I think is really underrated. The two lenses I have experience using was the 35mm f1.8 lens. If you'd like to learn more about that, check out my left hand here, or maybe you want to see the autofocus shootout between my 17 to 35, which is on the camera right now, and that lens, again, left hand here, you guys can check that out. And the other lens was a more affordable 28mm f2.8 SE pancake lens. I really liked that lens a lot. I thought it was really good, but at 28mm and 35mm, having both primes, it just didn't really make sense to keep either of those lenses. And actually selling both of them was pretty much what financed my lens kit I have now. And actually as well, if you want to learn more about that pancake lens, it's a great buy, really good value. Left hand here. So let's just go through some things that you should keep in mind if you're thinking about buying either a Nikon or third-party lens for your Nikon Z system. And to do that, we'll just have a quick look at the used section on KEH. They've got lots of different lenses, which is great. So the first thing you want to do is go Nikon autofocus. This will ensure that the lenses you're looking at actually can autofocus. Maybe you don't care about autofocus, but at least for me, that's something that I always like to think about. Also as well, we're going to just talk a little bit about DX versus FX. As you guys can see here, it's got APS-C and DX together, meaning that it's a crop sensor, not full frame. So if you've got a Z5, Z6, Z7, Z9, Z6 II, Z7 II, any of those cameras, they are full frame. So you want to make sure that the lenses you're looking at have that coverage. Otherwise, it'll show a vignette, or it'll actually ultimately punch in your sensor, which will lower the image quality, which you do not want. So let's go full frame, and then let's have a look at the lens mounts here. Let's make sure we get the right one that will fit on the Z2 adapter. Ton of different categories. We've got AF pre-D, AF in contacts, AIP. So guys, all these lenses from here up are for old SLR bodies. If you just want to shoot manual focus, that's cool, but you'll need a different adapter to mount them on your Z system, and there won't be autofocus. Also as well, we see Nikon F-mount D type. This means that it's a screw drive lens and actually won't autofocus on the Z system. Yes, you can mount them, but no, they will not autofocus. So we're going to make sure we select the Nikon F mount, because if we do that with the G type lenses, they will autofocus on the ftzII adapter.
And if you're looking at third-party options like Sigma, Tamron, or Tokina, make sure that you actually test the lens on the camera body prior to buying it, because not all of those lenses have coverage and support on the ftzII adapter.
I know the main topic of this video was what F-mount glass is in my camera bag, but I'd be remiss if I didn't talk at least a little bit about my B camera, which is the Osmo Pocket 2. I've had numerous different action cameras, so from DJI I've actually had the Osmo One as well as the Osmo Action. And between those and this Osmo Pocket 2, I'd have to say the Pocket 2 is by far the best action / B camera I've ever had. Maybe you're fancy, maybe you can have two Z6s, maybe a Z7 and a Z6, maybe a Z5, I don't know, maybe you've got a combination of different Z mount cameras, or we've got an old APS-C camera. But as for me, my bag is pretty limited with the amount of space I have, so I can fit one big camera, I can fit this, and maybe I can fit a drone as well. Just talking a little bit about this guy, I got the creator combo. They go anywhere from $400 up to $600 used. I got it for right around $350, which was a pretty great deal. Another thing that's great about getting the creator combo is you get this awesome wireless mic. Some things I love about the Osmo Pocket 2 would be the stability. It's awesome, it looks great. The colors honestly aren't bad coming out of camera. And I mean, yeah, this will never replace the full frame mirrorless camera that I'm shooting with right now, but in a pinch, it's great. I don't always want to take my Z6 with me everywhere. When all else fails, this will fit in my pocket, which is great, and it definitely does look better than my cell phone.
People often ask me, what does it mean to be a working professional in photography? I consider that to be wedding photographers, people that shoot models, stuff like that is where your camera is your only source of income. I use my camera for all of my work almost every single day, but I work in marketing, so it's not really quite the same. So that's why I like to use F-mount glass, because I'm paying for most of this gear myself. And with that in mind, I don't want to dump, $4,000 or $5,000 on various different lenses. And in the last couple of years of me using adaptive glass on the Nikon Z6, I haven't had a single complaint about the overall quality of either the image or the video. Nikon is definitely going after a higher price point of a consumer with their camera bodies as well as their lenses, which I think is great. I'm not one of those people, but I find that with the adapted lenses, it allows me to enter into the ecosystem without having to put a second mortgage on the house.
So do I think that F-mount glass is better than Z glass? I think that that's a loaded question. I think they're just two completely different systems. The looks look very different, and it really comes down to you, the user. What do you prefer? Do you like clinical sharpness? Do you want to pay for the best of the best? If that's the case, then buy Z glass and don't listen to anything I've said in this video. But if you're like me, where maybe you're not shooting full time for your work, and it's maybe a part of your work, or it's just a hobby, F-mount glass can be a great way to go. And I'd say in 2023, the image quality still stacks up against some of the best glass in the industry. And stay tuned, guys, I've got some cool videos coming up. The next one's going to be a low light test of the Z6. I think it's got great low light capabilities, so I'm going to be going out for Lunar New Year's with Marcus this Sunday evening. So we'll be taking the Z6 with a couple different lenses out that night and shooting in low light. So stay tuned for that. After that, we will have a mountain escape, talking about astro as well as sunrise up in the mountains. And after that, I'll be doing a film review on the Nikon F70. Spoiler alert, I got the film back. It looks really bad, but I think that might be user error as opposed to the actual camera. Anyways, in the meantime, hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, and remember to take beautiful photos every single day. Don't do it for the views, do it for yourself. And in the comments below, please tell me what your favorite F-mount lens is and why. Maybe I'll go pick it up for my next one. See you in the next video.